is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Hey Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Navigating COVID while protecting yourself can be difficult. Fortunately, there's a hotline you can call with any questions. The Department of Indian Work St. Paul partnered with the Minnesota Department of Health to open the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. They provide information on vaccines, booster shots, and testing sites. Right now, booster shots are available to anyone over the age of 18 for those who are eligible. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline can also help with housing, food, medical, and educational support. If you or someone you know has questions about COVID-19, vaccinations, booster shots, or testing, please call 651-304-9986. Again, the number is 651-304-9986. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline is open for calls Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Call the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline at 651-304-9986.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for partly cloudy skies overnight with a low around 27. Tuesday, partly sunny with a high near 45. And Wednesday, rain with a high around 50. Crooner's Supper Club is back after some renovations that included a new dining room, a new bar called Maggie's Lounge, and expanded main stage seating. So enjoy a delicious dinner and music from some of the best jazz artists. That's Crooner's Supper Club on Moore Lake off Highway 65 and 694. Find the concert calendar at croonersmn.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut, hitting cut again.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade, which means distant thunder. Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. We discuss local and national Native news and events. And as you know, Wendy, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Native Roots Trading Post, located at 700 Nicollet Mall in downtown Minneapolis on the first floor of the Dayton's building. Come on down and support Native American artists.
Right on. Hey, so today we have John Curtis, who is the CEO of the Retreat Treatment Center. We're going to check in with him. And of course, we have Dr. Stately of the Native American Community Clinic. And then, like we talked earlier, Wendy, this is where you hear news where you don't hear anywhere else. So why don't we get immediately to Gina Peltier with the news. Welcome, Gina.
Hey, bonjour, everyone. Robert and Wendy, thank you so much for having me. So Gina Peltier and Dijnakash, Makadewe, Makwa and Dudum, Anishinaabe and Dunjimba, Mikanakwaji and Niniwag. Hello, everyone. Gina Peltier here. I am Black Bear Clan, and I am Anishinaabe from the Turtle Mountain Pembina Band of Chippewa. So jumping right into it, meat prices have increased by double digits around the United States recently. Tyson's CEO says they are asking customers customers to pay for inflation. Meanwhile, Tyson's posted $1 billion in profits last quarter, a 48% increase from the first quarter in 2021. Corporate greed is not only driving up the prices, but it's also running and ruining the country. So this injustice does need to stop. But, Pink Floyd has reunited to record their first new material in 28 years, a protest song against the Ukraine war. Hey, Hey, Rise Up features David Gilmour and Nick Mason alongside longtime Floyd bassist Guy Pratt and Nitwin Swanee on keyboards. That's pretty exciting. I love Pink Floyd. That's going to be quite the song, huh?
Yeah, that sounds good. And all and now, no wall, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I got more good news. In Phoenix, Arizona, Norma Baker Flyinghorse, founder of Red Berry Woman, was chosen among 3 other designers as Phoenix Fashion Week's Designer of the Year at the Chateau Lou. She was one of the 2 Indigenous fashion designers chosen by the organization to participate in a 3-month boot camp that challenged participants with a curriculum designed to advance each designer's business in the fashion industry. And then also in Phoenix, Arizona, 100 dancers from the US and Canada competed in the 32nd annual World Championship Hoop Dance Contest at the Heard Museum in Phoenix. In 90-degree temperature, people were excited to be back after last year's virtual competition. Over the years, as the hoop dance community has grown, dancers have incorporated new and creative designs and intricate footwork while still respecting the fundamentals of the form. Each dancer presents their own choreography, weaving in aspects of tradition and culture. Men and women compete on an equal field, and individual routines may be featured as few as 4 to as many 50 hoops, which are manipulated to create a variety of designs such as animals, insects, and globes. And then in other news, Indigenous artists were left hanging after being ghosted by a show's promoter this past weekend. A dream lineup of Indigenous artists was scheduled for a Saturday in Rapid City, South Dakota, but turned sour when the show's promoter allegedly failed to fulfill his financial commitments to the performers and vendors. Several of the performers who were expected to take the stage at the concert, Akisa 2022 in a good way, backed out of the event on Thursday and Friday, saying the event's promoter, Brandon Ferguson, failed to pay them for their travel costs and hotel rooms after agreeing to cover the costs. Artists expressed they were ghosted when asking for confirmation on hotel and travel. As soon as news spread, a Rapid City native nonprofit Indian collective had stepped up saying it would host the event, renaming it FTP Fest, For the People Festival, and changing the venue to Rapid Skills Athletic Complex in Rapid City. Indian Collective, who is not associated with Brandon Ferguson or the Akisa 2022 event, released on their social media that they were planning an event recognizing that many young people in the community were looking forward to experience the music, laughter, culture, and unity. The event was free to all people, and I am certainly grateful to Nick Tilson, the president and CEO of Indian Collective and Indian Collective, for taking a disheartening act and turning it into an example of, this is what community looks like. I love it. And, quite honestly, if I could have went, I would have went. They had a really, really good lineup of artists, even after having all that disheartening stuff go on. So thank you again, Indian Collective.
Yeah,
And
definitely. I saw that floating around the internet, and I'm glad for that update, Gina. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just grateful a company or someone came in and did help put that on. It did state in the article that they did start working really, really hard and overtime to make this happen. Indian Collective did. So I'm really grateful they decided to step up and turn something bad into something good. I love it. That's right. This is what community looks like, guys.
Yeah, definitely.
And then one more thing I got for you guys, speaking of events, Earth Day is on Friday. And wow, I have a busy week of events. I know tomorrow we'll be having another informational event on the Huber Project in Bemidji, Minnesota, starting at 5:30 p.m. And these informational events, they're hosted by Annie Humphrey. And it's just amazing. You know, her music's so amazing, but then again, to see her be so active in actually, you know, protecting the environment and sticking up for what she believes. And the words that come out of her mouth are just so inspiring. But they do have dinner and then speakers and a presentation. And then, you know, my favorite part is when they have the raffles. People get so excited when they win. I love seeing people win, you know, really, really cool stuff. So we got that going on in Bemidji tomorrow, and then another one in Grand Rapids on Thursday. So that will be at the McCrasty Arts Center. And then Camp Newman has stuff going on. They got stuff going on starting April 20th all the way through the 22nd. I know on the 20th, they're having a kickoff dinner for all the water protectors that have to come back and have in-person court in, I believe it's Bagley. Where is that? Clearwater County, Minnesota is where all these in-person hearings are having. So Camp Newman, along with Honor the Earth and a few other organizations, have come together to welcome the water protectors and then to throw a Flood the Courts campaign event for the in-person court hearings, which is really, really nice to do, because going to court is really stressful enough, you know, let alone having to face it alone. So it's always nice to have all that. But there's so much going on, including another Line 3 legal defense benefit that will be in Bemidji as well on Thursday, the same day these water protectors have their court appearance. So it's just really nice that is also going on as kind of a stress reliever after having court, to get together and have a lot of support and your friends around. And I'm just grateful that, you know, Honor the Earth and Rise Coalition and MM350 and Camp Newman and Red Lake Treaty Camp and Camp McEasy are still getting together and still working hard and just still fighting this. And as a community, I've never been so happy to be part of a community before, like where I just feel so welcome and accepted and safe and stuff like that and stuff. But the one more thing, like I got to mention, you know, we're going to have Winona LaDuke on Friday, and she's got some great inspirational words. So I'm looking forward to that too.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. Yeah, that's going to be exciting. Thanks, Gina. We're also going to have State Senator Mary Kunesh on Friday for Earth Day, but we're revving up. Up next, we have John Curtis, CEO of The Retreat, and really excited to talk to him. We'll be right back after this short break.
Stay with us. Hey, Ogama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Children's Minnesota raises up children's health by raising the standards, hands, voices, the bar, the stakes, the questions, and the curtain on raising kids' health to the highest priority. With the most pediatric experts in the upper Midwest, we're setting the stage because kids need us, all of us. So let's raise them up so every kid can reach their best health. Children's Minnesota, the kid experts.
We are your relatives.
We are your relations.
Brothers,
sisters,
sons,
daughters. And some of us are your grandchildren.
We are your community. Historically, we held places of honor and respect. Because of the impact of colonization, some of us are rejected, thrown up family, friends, and community, set up as targets for sexual violence, sex trafficked, humiliated, tortured, and murdered. Everybody has the right to be safe. We are your relatives. Remember,
homophobia is not traditional.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Aho, relatives. My name is George McCauley, Omaha Nation. I'm a citizen of the Omaha Nation in Nebraska. As we head into wintertime, many of us will be back together indoors. It's important to make sure you receive your COVID booster shot. Older Americans are more at risk for complications for COVID-19. All 3 COVID vaccine boosters have been approved. Find a vaccine site by calling 651-304-9986 or go to vaccineconnector.mn.gov.
Hi, this is Representative Sharice Davids from Kansas. I'm Ho Chunk, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by MN350, a grassroots organization fighting for climate justice.
That's right. That's right. Hey, we are really excited, and I've been trying to get John to hang with us for a while, and it's John Curtis from the retreat. And I'm really excited to have John on, but there's a lot of things going on too. And like this day on Mondays, we have Dr. Stately on from Native American Community Clinic, and he'll be on a little later. And I know we talk a lot about COVID and what's happening, but really what's happening, when we were shut down for, 3 years almost, and to our not only to our recovery community, but also people that need our help. So I think it's really imperative that we have John on and talk about the retreat. Welcome, John Curtis.
Thanks, Robert. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
That's great. Hey, if you don't mind, can you give us a little background on the retreat? That would be great, because I know there's so many great things happening, and we have so little time. So could you fill our audience in all over Turtle Island? We have people listening in Madison, Milwaukee, and Chicago. Just give them a little insight of what's happening at the retreat and maybe a little history.
Well, a little background. About 24 years ago, the retreat opened, and it was in response to the rising cost of treatment, and access to treatment was diminishing across the country, and outcomes were diminishing. And we felt like we needed to create a different approach to help people that wouldn't break the family bank, that would be an affordable, accessible approach to helping people recover. So we put together a model of care that is based on a very simple formula, that we take people who want recovery and surround them with a community of people who have it. And we find that this milieu of enthusiasm for living a life in recovery is contagious, and it's attractive. So the retreat really is a residential study in the steps and spirituality of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. So it's an opportunity for people to get away from the burning house of their addiction and be in a loving, nurturing environment, and focus on the steps and the spirituality that's involved in finding a life in recovery.
Yeah, and I know, as a Native American, I know one of the things, and I talked about being sober for 37 years on the show every once in a while, and one of the things that's interest to me and really helps me is that it is a spiritual ailment, and we're spiritual people, and not especially Native Americans, we all are, but that's something that really needs to be repaired and recovered. And I was not rehabilitated. I was habilitated at 23 years old.
Yeah, and I relate to that as well in my own life. I was a 23-year-old scared kid that fell into addiction at an early age, and I was lost and I was scared. And I did not know how to get out of this swirl of addiction. And I found myself on a one-way airline ticket sent to Minnesota to get sober. And I was surrounded with a community of people who believed in me. And that really had a deep impact on my life, and both personally and professionally. And I believe that nothing works better than to surround yourself with people who believe in you and believe that you have the ability to recover. And and you're right, the field of addiction treatment today, mostly because managed care doesn't want to pay to find God and do an inventory, but they will pay to address co-occurring issues. Everything has rolled under the umbrella of psychiatry and psychology, and is focusing more on the assessment of pathological conditions.
Mm.
And our belief is that, recovery isn't the absence of co-occurring issues. It's having a community of support, a program of living, and sobriety, so that when life does hit you in the face, which it will for all of us, we all suffer from grief and loss and trauma and issues in our lives. But we're here to, create a program of living for people that will help them get through life's challenges.
I know, and I could not be where I'm at without the community, and I think that's the nail on the head. I remember an old friend of us who's now not with us anymore, Tom, said that when somebody had told him early on that everybody that sobers up has some kind of skill and some kind of greatness in them, and it's funny. He said, and I believed the guy, and I went on, and he did some really good things in business, and he was always there for people, and that those kind of things that are handed down or handed sideways to you really make a difference, and that's where the community really makes a difference. What you're talking about,
It's huge, and we we started as a little 19-bed experiment 24 years ago, and now we have 171 beds in Wayzata and St. Paul. We have 12 locations around the world that have replicated our model. We have 400 volunteers that come in and out of the retreat every month to carry the message of hope and recovery to the people that are here. So when you're here, you're surrounded with these bright light people who have found a life on the other side, a life of hope and belief in themselves again. So to me, that is the greatest gift of working at the retreat, is being around this lively group of people who all of a sudden the light has come on in their life, and they have hope again.
right? It always gets the darkest before sunrise, and I know it's great to see people that we know and have known over the years when the light switched, and not that they got it, but they got it a day at a time, and it's the we part, that we always talk about, the community, and that's so important. And I know a friend of ours, Colin Cash, too, and he's doing great things after people are out of treatment centers, building community too. So there's many ways about doing this, but I know the retreat is kind of what we always talk about in our Native community, that it's done for the right reason. You know what I mean? It's not done for the almighty dollar, and being the least expensive treatment center it just says it all, John.
Yeah, it's we committed early on that money would not block you from getting the help you need, and we believe that, and that's at our core, that we provide about $450,000 a year, a scholarship. So it's we do everything we can to make it possible for people to get the help they need.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wendy, you have any questions?
Yeah, if one of our listening audience wanted to inquire, would they just Google the retreat and find out if there's a place in their area, and is there like an intake where you could call and get somebody? And do you also do just like online, if somebody can't go to the retreat physically and stay in the housing, do you offer any online therapy at all?
Yeah, great questions. If you want to know more about the retreat, the best thing is go to www.theretreat.org. And our website has live chats, and there'll be somebody there that will help answer questions that you may have. One of the benefits of COVID, and I have to say the last 2 years have been challenging for all of us. It's in a world that, in a program that survives on community, to have the community be locked down has been a real challenge. But it forced us to turn every program we have into virtual programs as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we have virtual recovery programs online that you can access and be a part of. and join people from all around the world that are participating in groups to support each other to be happy and sober.
Yeah, that's excellent. I have the site up here for people that are watching us on Facebook and YouTube, www.theretreat.org. And then I'm also going to pop up the number here. It's important if you know anybody that needs help, this is a place to go. And there's the number up there too. We only got like a minute and a half left, John. What can you leave us with here?
Well, I guess the most important message is that there is hope. And if you know or love someone who's struggling with addiction, ask for help. We know one thing, that it's a progressive, fatal illness. And eventually, if you don't get the help you need, you're gonna lose your life. So, there is hope. And you call the retreat, and whether the retreat is the right place for you or not will help you get to the place that's right for you.
Wow, perfect way to end it. Thank you so much for spending time with us. And I know you're missing your home group, and we really appreciate you stopping in for this few minutes to talk about it, because there is a solution, and the solution is to get help. And here's one great place, the retreat.org, to get help and reach out to your friends. Thank you so much again, John.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Love to see you, Robert. Good to see you, buddy.
All right. Good to see you, too. We'll be right back after this short break. You're listening to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake.
Stay with us.
I heard sex trafficking happens a lot in Indian country. What is that?
Here are some of the real reasons why sex trafficking happens in Indian country. Unequal gender roles that were forced on us by colonization. Communities don't have enough resources. Silence around domestic and sexual violence. Lack of attention and justice for missing and murdered Indigenous people. There's a lot of behavior that keeps our communities out of balance. These are just a few true reasons why Native communities are targeted by traffickers. When these acts of violence happen in our communities, it opens us all up for exploitation.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
J&S Bean Factory is a native-owned, community-supported, cozy, artsy coffee shop which offers roasted on-site beans, live music, and baked goods. Relax in the beautiful outside patio. City Pages writes, voted top 10 coffee shops. Tucked into a quiet corner of St. Paul's Highland Park neighborhood, this coffee shop roasts beans on-site from the best coffee-growing countries in the world. Located at 1518 Randolph Avenue, St. Paul. The good stuff.
Life is a journey, and the Doherty Family College will help you get where you want to go. Located downtown Minneapolis, this affordable 2-year college provides free textbooks, a laptop, career coaching, one-on-one mentorship, and a Metro Transit pass, making DFC the perfect pathway to a bachelor's degree. Turn your dreams into reality. Connect with a counselor today at dfc.stthomas.edu.
Navigating COVID while protecting yourself can be difficult. Fortunately, there's a hotline you can call with any questions. The Department of Indian Work St. Paul partnered with the Minnesota Department of Health to open the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. They provide information on vaccines, booster shots, and testing sites. Right now, booster shots are available to anyone over the age of 18 for those who are eligible. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline can also help with housing, food, medical, and educational support. If you or someone you know has questions about COVID-19, vaccinations, booster shots, or testing, please call 651-304-9986. Again, the number is 651-304-9986. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline is open for calls Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Call the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline at 651-304-9986.
Hi, everybody. I'm Santita Jackson, and I want you and all your friends to join my new show, The Santita Jackson Show, Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 a.m. Central on the Progressive Voice of Minnesota.
Stewart Co-op is now offering convenient self-serve and prepackaged hot options and salad bars at both the Franklin and Friendship stores. Breakfast items available daily until 11 a.m. and brunch served all day every Sunday. Their weekly lunch and dinner menus highlight cuisines from around the world. They offer vegan, vegetarian, and gluten-free options daily. 95% of the ingredients used are organic from small-scale, local community food producers whenever possible. More at seward.coop.
Now, more than ever, we are being faced daily with the topic of human mortality. And for many people, estate planning has been top of mind. Getting your estate planning done now can be easy and cost-effective. Schroman Law offers virtual options for initial consultations so that new clients can safely initiate the process. With many facing uncertain financial situations, Schroman Law also offers affordable fees for legal documents. Learn more at schromanlaw.com. That's SCHROMEN law.com.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for partly cloudy skies overnight with a low around 27, Tuesday partly sunny with a high near 45, and Wednesday rain with a high around 50.
Don't waste hours figuring out how to pick up and assemble your own grill. Leave it to the specialists at Warner Stellian. Choose from the hottest new grills. Then don't pay a penny more for professional assembly, delivery, or haul away. Shop now at warnerstellian.com.
Turn it down, Cheske. Yeah. Well, I don't know if people can hear you.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
The Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, wow, that was a great interview with John Curtis. It was great to have him stop in of the retreat. There's all that mental illness that's happening with COVID and accentuating in ODs and things like that. So it's really imperative to have him stop in. And now we have the star of the show, Dr. Stately, and I still can't call him Tony yet. So maybe another year being on the show, I can start calling him Tony, Wendy, and we're glad to have him on as always. And we want to see how you're feeling because Wendy's still a little under the weather, Dr. Stately.
Yeah, I'm doing better than I was last week.
So you did not.
I still have a cough. Horrible.
You had pneumonia. Is that right? You did not have.
Yeah, I got. Well, I think to err on the side of being really cautious, she kind of my primary care doctor kind of diagnosed me on the borderline of bronchitis and pneumonia. I had a pretty bad cough. It was really horrible, actually. And it's still fairly bad when I have it. It's less frequent. I've been on a couple of different antibiotics, and they started some steroids a couple weeks ago, and then a couple days ago, prednisone, which is like kind of making me a little bit. I don't know. I don't enjoy it.
Yeah,
it's hard for me to. The effect is it's hard for me to sleep at night. I've been kind of jittery, and I've noticed that I haven't been as sort of like what do you call it? Present and focused as I typically can be. I struggle with ADHD anyway, and now I feel like I'm kind of all over the place. So,
any irritability?
Typical irritability thing. Yeah, it raises your blood. It raises my blood sugar. It has there's just all kinds of really not so great side effects of it, but it's better, I think, than hacking away. And I've had this wheezing thing for a while. I think I can't remember if I mentioned this when I was talking to Robert the other day when I saw him. I said my son told me, like when I was sleeping, he noticed that I was wheezing at night and kind of heard this whistling noise. So he was the one that told me to go to the doctor. He's like, you sound weird when you're sleeping, Dad. So I think you should go to the hospital. Well, I'm not going to go to the hospital. I don't want to be kept there. I'll go see a doctor.
Right. There you go. Well, and also too, I mean, you had COVID before we had vaccines, and you were in the hospital, and there's got to be some scarring and damage to the lungs when you've gone that far. So maybe you're more susceptible. Is that a word? Did I say that right?
Not susceptible, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Woo.
Accessible. accessible. I don't. Yeah, actually, I did get I finally did because I went back in and she said, "Come back if it's not, you're not responding to antibiotics and stuff." And I did remember, like, the doc when I left the hospital was like, "You do have some scarring. You're going to be more likely to sort of like, catch and struggle with things like pneumonia, any respiratory thing." He's just like, anything respiratory, like, don't mess around with it. Get back and get in to see a doctor right away and just take care of it. So I did, and then I took a chest X-ray on Friday, and they're like, "Yeah, no pneumonia that we can see, but like visible scarring in my lungs." So, which
Yeah,
is
I remember
challenging.
when I was really, really young, I had pneumonia like 3 or 4 times when I was just a baby, and I know it scarred my lungs from when I was a little tot, and so I should have never been.
Yeah.
It looked so cool with those cigarettes hanging from my mouth
Oh
for
my
those
God.
30 years.
When you were like a little tiny guy, like you were like smoking at 2 or something, like cool kid in the corner.
I was a little older at that. I would think I was 14, and it was pretty cool,
Yeah.
Oh.
I started smoking around the same age, stopped when I was in my early 30s. I noticed like there's this tightness in my chest, kind of like what I felt like when I first got out of the hospital with COVID. Kind
Oh,
of like this, and this kind of like, just every once in a while, like if I take a deep breath, it's a little bit of pain. So, man, I was a little bit mad when she said, like, you got some visible scarring in your lungs from COVID. I was like, God, man, I smoked all those years and I gave up cigarettes like almost 25 years ago. And it's like, I was thinking, I'm going to be sailing through life with some healthy, sexy lungs.
COVID took
No chance. COVID, took my swagger away from me.
as you know, Wendy had COVID, and she was
I know.
stuck in New York, and we couldn't take care of her, and she got home, and here she is, and still a little lingering. She's not the peppy young Wendy that I've known to love all these years.
Yeah, a little bit more tired, and I still am coughing here and there, although it is a lot less. Yeah. And I still feel like I have brain fog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my longer term sort of like COVID symptoms have been like this constant, like, it wasn't really pronounced, but I would do things like I'd be having a conversation. I think was like the other day I was talking to you, Robert. I was like, we're talking about somebody that we both knew, and I was like, I had to try to remember the context of the last conversation that I had with the person, like where I was at. And then the name came to me, but it's a person I've known forever. Like I've known for like 15 years. I was like, this is really disturbing. So my son tells me that I have, well, he doesn't pronounce it right, but dementia. He calls it something else, which is not an English word, but I'm like, I don't have dementia. Like,
I have sometimers. Sometimes I remember, and sometimes I forget.
Yeah, sometimers. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I noticed you didn't laugh at my joke about how long the Ojibwe are here, so I guess you were just a little off because you used to think I was really funny. Or Wendy, I always go, Wendy used to think I was really funny, and she said,
yeah,
be funny. You're not funny anymore, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's a long COVID symptom. You might be stuck with that for a really long time, actually.
Oh,
yeah, he definitely needs new material. I've been telling him.
He needs, he's been skating by with the same, material for quite some time.
When you first meet me, you think I'm really funny, and then Wendy knows I've been using the same material for the last 20 years.
You always say, Wendy used to laugh at my jokes, and I always say, you used to be funny.
You're like, it wasn't the jokes I was laughing at.
Yeah. Oh.
Just kidding.
Yes.
Or do you know that one? Like, we were like, I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing with you.
Right.
Or the other way around. I'm like, well, it still hurts either way.
Right, exactly. So what's going on in COVID land? What's happening? We just had like John Curtis on, and we were talking about recovery, and I know you and I are in recovery too, and it's been a sad state because we're really wrestling with the alligators when it comes to COVID, and then we have ODs happening, at least in my tribe in Wisconsin, happening weekly.
Yeah. I mean, so, you know, things were bad before COVID happened, but they got really worse with COVID. And one of the things I don't think I'm not sure really how much people paid attention to this or how much sort of news it got at the time it was happening. But, you know, remember, COVID kind of hit our shores like the end of December 2019, early 2022 or 2020. By March 11th, essentially, it's like that's kind of when the state sort of shut down here in Minnesota, and it was just weeks before that when we saw it kind of like happening on the eastern seaboard, and you know, and fairly shortly thereafter, like George Floyd was murdered, right? So we had this really one of these things that happened as a result of sort of like this pandemic that was overtaking our community. And then at the same time, you know, we had the civil unrest thing with, you know, just insane amount of community level violence, and just, you know, all of the pharmacies within Minneapolis and St. Paul, the majority of them, especially in South Minneapolis, all the pharmacies were sort of like looted and burned to the ground, and you know, they kind of closed and shuttered their doors. They had to, which almost overnight, within a couple of days, completely sort of like shut down the ability for people who were struggling with opiate use disorder and getting treatment, like medication assisted treatment. They couldn't get their buprenorphine or their Suboxone fairly easily, right? Really challenging. And you know, you used to be able to at that time, you could walk into a pharmacy and get Narcan, because it was a standing order prescription for Narcan if you needed it. And so it was hard for like outreach teams to get Narcan into our communities, hard for people struggling with opiate use disorder to get Suboxone. And the effect of that over those protracted period of time, I would say, you know, several weeks to a couple of months before we were able to sort of address you know, some of those pharmacies are still just now starting to be rebuilt and opened. What happened is you can see the trajectory of overdose deaths in our community, and specifically within American Indian people, just shoot straight up over 2020 and 2021. In that 2-year period or 18-month period, overdose, non-fatal and fatal overdoses for Native people more than tripled. So really serious impact on our infrastructure, our health and well-being, and all kinds of other challenges for us.
Wow, that's amazing. We should talk a little bit more about that. That's a thing that seems so long ago, but really isn't that long ago. And that's such a great point. I didn't even really think of that. Hey, do you have time for another segment, Dr. Stately? That's awesome. Yep. Hey, you're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and we're listening and talking to Dr. Stately, the CEO of the Native American Community Clinic here on Native Roots Radio. We'll be right back, Wendy, after a short break.
Stay with us.
Hey, Wendy, what are we doing for dinner after the show?
How about we go to J. Selby's on 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul? They have a delicious plant-based menu that's compassionate and environmentally sustainable.
I'm getting their spot-on vegan Big Mac, the dirty secret.
You can pick up and they deliver within a 5-mile radius, or you can call them at 651-222-3263 or visit jselbys.com.
Well, you sold me, Wen. Let's go order at J. Selby's tonight.
I'm hungry.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Even though things are getting better, COVID-19 is still around and a threat to our public health. To best protect yourself, make sure you continue to wear masks in high-traffic areas like concerts, sporting events, or crowded indoor buildings. Wearing masks can help prevent severe illness and reduce the strain on our hospitals and healthcare workers. Wear a mask with the best fit, protection, and comfort for you. This message is brought to you by the Native American Community Clinic. Find more COVID information by calling 651-304-9986.
Hey, Ogama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
You're listening to Native Roots Radio. This is Spirit from Reservation Dogs. Get up and listen.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
That was, I don't know if it was just the way it sounded, but that sounded kind of lame.
No, that was an awesome howl.
Okay, all right.
That was no. I don't know if it was a howl as much as it was a cry for help.
Sound like a cry for help.
I blame it on COVID.
Yeah, right. I was like, oh, I'm running out of lung capacity here.
Well, Wendy and I have our own show during the commercials. We do listen to the commercials, and that was a great voiceover I just did. I heard on the community clinic, but we were talking a little bit about Wendy used to be the manager at one of the pharmacies on Lake Street, and it's still not.
It's still a trailer. Yeah, the Walgreens on Lake Street.
Yeah, that Walgreens is still out of commission.
Yeah.
No, don't say the name.
Okay. I could say the name.
Oh,
I'm
the WG.
Is there in that small trailer? But
yeah.
It's just.
I mean, that impact is going to have challenges with our community for a while. We were actually able to, because we NAC was able to get our Suboxone prescriptions to our employee. I mean, not our employees, our patients, our clients, fairly rapidly, because we pivoted and moved to mail order Suboxone. So we had, if you were unsheltered and homeless and needed to pick it up at the clinic, we started that process right away. We pivoted as quickly as we possibly could to make sure that we got that people didn't have to go without that for a really long time. It really did put a burden on our healthcare system because, the things that we relied on, those things that sort of support your work, the work that you do every single day, sort of kind of came to grinding halt, right? In some ways. So it required us to think strategically and be really innovative and just kind of work outside of what the scope of what we typically worked out. To sort of get things that our relatives needed, everything from toilet paper to cleaning supplies to hand sanitizers. We were handing out things in the parking lot, and we had to create kits for everybody that was sort of in unsheltered situations. Things that would help me with sanitation and all kinds of things that would help them stay safe. And that was a huge Herculean undertaking. And it had an impact on the community, on the clinic, because, we had to we're asking healthcare providers to do more than just provide healthcare, right? Having them, and then doing that on top of everything else that they were doing. And, we're feeling the pinch still, just like a lot of other health systems. with the just the drain on people's emotional well-being, the burden, the emotional burden, the burnout, all those things. Those are having real impacts on us still to this day, right? Things that people don't think about, when they're sitting in their car and thinking like, well, I don't have to wear a mask. They don't think about those things that that it impacts your decisions. It impacts so many more people than just you yourself or your family. It has a ripple effect throughout our entire infrastructure.
It's hard to believe what we went through when you just gave the calendar of schools closing, George Floyd murder, line 3 is happening. All these things are happening in a different way. And I just got to remind our listeners and our allies that are in Milwaukee and listening to us in Madison and Chicago is that, I want to be clear that I don't think that we'd burn down our own pharmacies here. That was devastating.
No.
A lot of outside, and I know there was because a lot of them been convicted and arrested that came into our city and burned our city down.
We pickup trucks very close to where we live that had plates off the trucks, so you couldn't identify where they came from.
And I think it's important to remind people of that because the narrative always changes. But we lived it was a frightening time for more than one reason.
It was a frightening time, really frightening time for all kinds of reasons, right? The pandemic, the civil unrest, the unsuredness of of life at that point in time, your own physical safety, but the emotional and psychological safety of the people you loved was challenging. And it wasn't just happening here in Minneapolis. Remember Kenosha, Wisconsin? That was right outside of Wisconsin.
Oh my gosh.
It was insanity. Right? Scary, scary times. So, you remember watching, it was so odd to me to go through that experience at this age because I grew up in. I didn't grow up, but I lived in Los Angeles during the LA riots when the civil unrest happened in the face of Rodney King's and the acquittal of all those officers, and that was scary. There were tanks running through my streets and outside of West Hollywood where I lived, and I could look and see fires burning all over around me, right? And so I had this visceral experience when this was happening right here in Minneapolis, where, I work every day, where many of my relatives live. I had a different emotional and physical, actually just a physical response, right? I remember the day after everything happened at the 3rd precinct, and I went and visited Lake Street in Minnehaha, where all that activity happened. And, I grew up a block from there. I grew up on between 31st and 32nd in Minnehaha. That was where I grew up as a child. And I saw Migazi burned to the ground, and man, I just cried because, that institution was that was my first job when I was in high school, right? My first job ever. I remember when I got my little $86 check and I went and cashed it at Robert's Shoes and, bought myself a pair of Earth shoes. Now, don't laugh. Earth shoes were a real thing back then. But it hit me differently, right? It hit me differently because I had this long memory of what this place and space was like, and it felt like things were crumbling and falling apart.
What was amazing too is that we weren't that far away from Standing Rock, and Wendy and I went there, and we weren't there as long as a lot of other people, but helicopters and planes flying constantly at Standing Rock. And then here we have helicopters, whether they're Army helicopters or the news helicopters, and the same thing, and people driving in our neighborhood all the way here in St. Paul. We had gas stations burned down, and we're in Groveland. We're 4 miles from where George Floyd was murdered, but still, to relive that, there's trauma with people. Franklin Avenue, we had Ogama was there with her significant other trying to protect Native community businesses every night.
Yep. And so the impact of that isn't just physical or it's impact of that is emotional and psychological as well. So like our community's struggling under the weight of that. The manifestation of the inequalities that are sort of kind of have been there for a really long time. It's like you rip the Band-Aid off and you got to see like the scar right there. There it is, like in plain daylight. The level of inequity between our communities and some of the more privileged communities, and that leaves in an emotional, psychological disruption that takes a lot of time to heal from.
Well, this has been a really good conversation to bring that back up because, again, I think one of the key things you just said was right there is the inequities where BIPOC people are living through this, and you can be in the suburbs and be chilling like a villain, where, London's burning. Dr. Stately, thank you so much for coming on, and I'm glad you're feeling better. Wendy's feeling a little better. Gina, thank you for everything, and I want to give a shout out to John Curtis, Retreat, for stopping in. You're listening to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake.
Free Leonard Peltier.
Eat Local Minnesota is a great way to find locally owned Minnesota restaurants and food purveyors.